November 5th, 1982, interview with Josephine Ann Coomer. Mrs. Coomer, when were you born?
When was I born?
Yes, ma'am, when?
1888, September the 6th.
And where were you born?
In Austin, Texas.
What's your first recollection of Austin?
Well, I had no recollection until I came to Oklahoma, but I went back many times, so it wouldn't be a recollection. It would be just like anyone visiting it. I came to Oklahoma when Lawton, Oklahoma was just a little village. I was about 9 years old, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Who was your father?
Theodore Becker.
Where was he from?
Pennsylvania.
And who was your mother?
Who was my mother?
Yes, ma'am.
Lilliam Wassom.
Where was she from?
Texas.
What part of Texas?
The eastern part. I don't think I can... Round Rock, I guess, was a little village that she was.
Round Rock?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. But she was not born there.
What did your father do in Austin?
I don't know exactly, but he had been a Texas Ranger, and he did some kind of work at the Capitol, but I wouldn't know what it was, of course. Had no idea.
What year did you come to Lawton?
1903.
What's your first recollection of Lawton?
Just a little town with board sidewalks and no paving at all. And the hotel we came on the train, of course, and the hotel we came to was made all of wood, and the stairs were very steep, and the youngsters had to be taken up them. Just a little village like that.
What was the name of the hotel?
I don't know whether I can think of it or not. I don't believe I can.
Do you remember what the location was in Lawton?
I hadn't thought of it for 70 years. Put it out of my mind. There wasn't many locations. It was the main street, because there wasn't any other much.
Were the streets paved or brick?
No.
They were dirt streets?
No, it was all dirt everywhere. It was just a little village.
Mm-hmm. How many people lived in Lawton then?
I don't know. We went immediately to the ranch up in the mountains.
In the Wichita Mountains?
Yeah.
How far was that from Lawton?
Well, let's see, Cash was... I wouldn't know. But it's the same distance then as it is now.
Did you go to Fort Sill?
Went through Fort Sill, but we didn't go to Fort Sill. My father had horses. He started a horse ranch.
Do you have any recollection of Fort Sill?
Oh, yes. I was there many times.
What was it like?
Well, it was like a small fort. There was no magnificent buildings. They were all small, but it had room, and it had a hospital. But I couldn't lay out anything about Fort Sill.
How old were you when you went to Lawton?
Well, I was about 9 years old.
That'd be about 1897 when you went to Lawton.
No, I told you. It was 1903.
Okay. Okay, 1903, that's correct. I'm sorry. Do you remember Statehood Day?
Yes.
What did you do that day?
Paraded.
In Lawton?
Yeah.
How big was the parade?
Oh, I don't know. It wasn't like a parade is now. It was mostly wagons and backboards and horsebackers and things like that. There was no display, no great to-do.
Will you have any dances or parties that day?
Oh, they danced in the street.
How long did the celebration last?
Well, it didn't last very long for us because we went back to the ranch. But I think it lasted all night. All that day and all that night. I think that would be an estimate.
Did they ring all the church bells? And
not that I remember of. They had many whistles, but there was no bells.
Do you remember the Spanish-American War?
Yes.
Do you have any? What are your memories of that?
A brother that went to it.
Where did he serve?
Huh?
Where did he serve?
I don't know. It was a heartbreaking thing, is all I know. Then, of course, I wasn't used to war. I was just a child.
Do you remember when the boys went down with General Pershing to chase Pancho Villa?
Yes.
What was your recollection of that? What was your opinion of that time?
Well, my opinion of that was, now, who was that general that went down and to capture him?
General Pershing.
Pershing. I didn't think, and my family didn't think, of course, that would be my thoughts then, for I was young, that Pershing was doing what he should do. Go to the border, yes, but no further than the border. And he went down into Mexico, and he had no business there.
What did you do during World War I?
What did I do?
Yes, ma'am.
I went to school and begged to go to the war.
Did they let you go?
No, we didn't get to go. It was over before we were training to go in Edmond, Oklahoma. I was a student there at that time. And we were to go. Then all they would allow would be women, girls, for telephone duty and things like that. So there was 50 of us in the class. And we intended to go, and we had permission to go, but the war was over, so we didn't get to go, and of course we lamented terribly.
Yes. You say you were in school in Edmond?
Uh-huh.
Was this at Central State?
Yes, teachers' college then. It was just a small college, and tuition was all free.
So you were training to do telephone work?
No, I didn't have to do that. But I was training to be a teacher, and I was a teacher.
Did you do any work like knitting or...
Like what?
Knitting
Oh,
sweaters?
yes, for the boys, yes.
What did you knit?
Oh, we knitted scarves and berets and gloves and just those things to keep the boys warm.
Did you do any work with the troops that were coming through Oklahoma City? Did you work with the troops that came through Oklahoma City on the train?
Uh-uh.
So you didn't do any canteen work?
No.
Where were you in the 1920s?
Teaching school in southwest Oklahoma.
When did you meet your husband?
I met him at a dance in Fort Sill. He was a soldier. He had been to World War I. He was an aide to Pershing. And I don't know, just I was married in 22. So I imagine it was about 20.
When did you begin teaching?
Where did I?
When?
When?
And where?
I taught in the country school in the same town as, you have to forgive me, names slip me. I don't get names anymore like I should. A little town on the west side, down from Hobart. But what it was, I don't know now. But I taught in the country schools.
Was it a one-room schoolhouse?
Yes. 8 grades.
How many grades did you teach?
I taught all of them.
You taught all 8 grades?
All of those grades.
How many students did you have?
About 35.
About how many in each grade?
Well, there would be the most in the 4th and 5th grade. There was only a few in each grade. I remember in the 8th grade there was 9 boys and girls. And we had so much fun. Some of them were older than I was. I was only 16 when I started to teach. They're beautiful people on those ranches.
Did you get a teacher certificate?
Mm-hmm.
When did you receive that? What year?
Well, I don't know. You'd have to go to Lawton and look it up, I guess. My oldest sister had been to private schools in Austin. She was highly educated, so she helped me a great deal.
What schools did she attend in Austin?
It was a woman's school, but I wouldn't know the name, though I rode horseback down to it one time. I can't think of it.
In Austin, did you live near the Colorado River in Austin?
No, but on the ranch, before I was born, my father and mother and my oldest sister and 2 brothers lived on the ranch, and I went back to visit it. It was, I had the name of those people. Teachers, I think. My father bought the ranch from Teachers. It was a small ranch right on the Colorado River. Beautiful, but small.
How far from Austin was it?
About 43 miles.
Upriver or downriver?
Upriver, always upriver.
Did you ever climb Mount Scott?
Oh, yes.
What'd you do on Mount Scott in the early days?
Well, we just, like in the bunch of kids, but mostly Mount Sheridan. We liked Mount Sheridan much better. We'd go up there and we'd often take a lunch and visit and play cards and just do whatever young people did then.
Next question. Did you ever meet Geronimo?
Yes.
What was he like?
Oh, he was an Indian, and he wasn't a bad man like he was. Of course, he was a warrior, and he killed a lot of people. But both Quanah Parker and Geronimo were intelligent. And, you know, Geronimo was a prisoner in Fort Sill for a good many years. And he would ride out, and of course 2 soldiers would ride with him, and he'd see all the country, and he'd make comments and all just like anybody. They were intelligent.
Where did you meet him, Geronimo?
I saw him. I didn't meet him. I just went to see him in Fort Sill.
Where'd they keep him?
Well, they kept him in not a barracks, but a part where the non-coms lived.
So he really wasn't in a jail cell then, was he?
No. He had freedom. He rode a horse, and he was well treated.
Did you meet Quanah Parker?
Yeah. I went to Quanah Parker's funeral.
When was his funeral?
Let me see now. I was in Edmond. I would say about 17, but I'm not sure.
What was your impression of Quanah Parker?
Oh, he was an Indian, and he was not as good looking and not as intelligent looking as Geronimo, but he must have been. He had 4 wives.
He had 4 wives?
Yes. Tunisi was his favorite wife, so we saw Tunisi when we went there.
Did you meet her?
Well, I don't think you could say we met her because there was a crowd of us and we just saw her.
Mm-hmm. And you went to Quanah Parker's funeral?
Yeah.
In the 1920s, what kind of dresses did you wear?
Huh?
In the 1920s?
Yes.
What kind of dresses did you wear?
Well, they were not any different much. They would be called old-fashioned, but they were not any different much from the dresses we wear now.
You weren't a flapper then, were you?
No, never.
You didn't wear your dresses above your knees?
No.
And didn't do the Charleston?
Huh?
You didn't do the Charleston?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Where were you living in the 20s? Were you still in Lawton?
No, I lived in the Wichita Mountains on the ranch that we had there. And where our house was school land. And Mother bought it from the estate. And that was where we lived. But our ranch was all there. And at that time, cattle was run in the forest preserve. And they were run for $1 a head, just $1 a head a year. And the ranchers did awful well. But it was during Roosevelt's administration that was taken over for game preserve. So that ruined the ranching business.
What was your husband? Was he a rancher then at this time?
No, he was never a rancher. He was a soldier.
Okay.
Until we came later, but this is later down to. He was in the engineering department in Halliburton, but he was a soldier. And he was stationed at Fort Sill at this time.
Where did he? Oh, I'm sorry.
During World War I, he was with Mitchell, as I said. He was an aide. And
they
flew.
Was he an aide to Mitchell or Pershing?
Mitchell, not Pershing.
Billy Mitchell?
Yes.
So he was an aviator in the Army?
He wasn't an aviator, but he flew. With.
How long had he been in the Army? When did he join the Army?
When he was 17 years old.
Did he ever go to Panama when they built the canal?
No.
Because
he
you
went
mentioned
to this. Oh goodness, I'm sorry, I lose words.
Oh, that's fine.
You know. Where? Hawaii.
I thought he may have been an engineer because you mentioned he worked with Halliburton in the engineering department.
Yes, but he wasn't then. He was, well, maybe so, I don't know. But anyway, he flew all the time with Mitchell.
Did you meet Billy Mitchell?
I saw him, but I didn't meet him, of course.
In the Dust Bowl.
Huh?
Where did you live during the Dust Bowl?
Well, I lived in Duncan, Oklahoma.
What was Duncan like in the 30s and the dust storms?
Well, it was a nice little town because, you know, Halliburton was there and he kind of built it. That's where the Halliburton started.
Did you meet Mr. Halliburton?
Oh, yes.
What was he like?
Oh, he was awful nice. He was just ordinary, uneducated, good-natured man.
When he first started his business, what did they do? The Halliburton Company.
Well, their business was always the same, oil.
Did your husband work with Halliburton when he first started?
Yes.
What was the dust storms like in Duncan?
Oh, just like they are now. If you go out west, they're terrible.
What did you do to try to keep the dust out of your house?
Oh, well, you know, what did I do? I didn't do anything but clean it up. I have gotten enough dust and dirt out of our house, which was a 2-bedroom cottage, to fill an ordinary basket. You didn't sweep it, you shoveled it.
Were you connected with the CCC program or WPA?
I wasn't connected, but I enjoyed the CCCs because they gave us plenty of places to enjoy. They were in the Wichita Mountains.
What did they do in the Wichita Mountains?
Oh, they cleaned it up and built, and just what soldiers would do on the fort. They dredged the swimming holes, and they made roads, and things like that.
Did you know Senator Gore?
Yes.
He was blind, wasn't he?
Uh-huh.
What was he like?
I wouldn't know what he was like. I saw him, but I don't know what his temperament was or anything. But I'm sure he was a kindly man, for everybody spoke well of him.
Did you ever meet Roosevelt? Theodore Roosevelt?
No.
What were you doing on December 7th, 1941?
Oh.
Pearl Harbor Day.
Well, what do you know? Was that Pearl Harbor Day?
Yes, ma'am.
I was sitting around in my brother's house in Dallas, Texas, where he had been wounded in World War I. He was in the Navy in World War I. So later on, in 39 or so, he lost his leg. They had to amputate his leg. And we visited with him when we could. So we were sitting around in his house when Pearl Harbor happened. And my brother said that must be, what was the name of that movie man that made those shows? We didn't know it was Pearl Harbor, of course. We thought it was this movie that was on the radio, on the television. But that was where I was on Pearl Harbor Day.
What did you do during World War II?
Well, I prayed mostly. I had 2 sons in me. And my husband died during that time. He killed himself working so hard.
Where did he work?
At Halliburton.
At Halliburton?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And you
he died in 50.
Mm-hmm. And you had 2 sons in the military?
Yes, 2 sons.
They both in the Army?
Both in the Army. My oldest son was a pilot. They were in the 8th Division in England. But my youngest son came home. Then he went back and went to Korea, and that's where he lost his life.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm proud. I've given more to the Army, more to the country. My father, my grandfather, all were in the Army. They fought for their country.
Mm-hmm. My grandfather was in World War I. My father was in World War II, and I was in Vietnam.
You were in Vietnam.
Yes, ma'am.
That was a mess.
Mm-hmm. What was your son's name that was killed in Korea?
He wasn't killed in Korea.
Oh, he wasn't?
No, he got home. He was a retired officer, and he lived in California. But he caught this disease in Korea, and the doctors couldn't cure him. He died.
What was his name?
Joseph.
Mm-hmm. What about your son that was the pilot?
David. He lives here in Oklahoma City.
He does?
Yes. I came here because I had this son here. I was in California.
Mm-hmm.
David made 35 missions over Germany.
You say you came by train to Lawton from Austin. What was the train ride like?
Oh, it was nice. My father had he brought horses, and we were in the coach, and the other, where the horses were, came with it. But it was nice, just as nice as it is now. We had meals on the train and everything.
So your father was a horse rancher?
Yes. Oh, he didn't live long enough, but he was. He brought horses to Lawton and took them out to the mountains. But he took pneumonia and died right away.
Whenever they...
we lost all the horses. They stole them.
Who stole them?
Well, really our neighbors. Cowboys.
Whenever they made the wildlife preserve and you lost the ranch, what did you all do?
We went to Lawton. My mother was a widow then, and there was only 3 of us left. My oldest sister, my youngest sister, and I.
And what did you do in Lawton? Did you work?
I taught.
You taught school?
Not in Lawton.
Where at?
But we lived in Lawton, and I taught in the country, as I told you.
Mm-hmm.
I came to Lawton for a vacation.
Mm-hmm. I think we've covered about everything.
Well, I don't think we've done any good.
I think we have. Around Lawton and around Oklahoma, have you met anyone famous or infamous? No, you said you saw Geronimo and Juana Parker.
Yes, I saw them. No, I met all of the ranchers, and they were just ordinary people.
Juana Parker.
Yes, I saw them. No, I met all of the ranchers, and they were just ordinary people, just like anybody else. Mm-hmm. And of course, I had no capacity to go here and there and everywhere. I was a poor girl, and I just taught, and we used our money to keep our home going, and that's all there was to it. I never went to any famous places or anything like that. I never left Oklahoma until I was married. Then, of course, we went to many places.
Did you want to leave Austin?
Hmm?
Did you want to leave Austin when your family moved to Lawton?
Did I want to leave?
What was your feelings about that, about leaving Austin?
Oh, I had no feelings. I like any other child. Where Daddy went, I wanted to go.
Mrs. Coomer, I think we have a good interview. And I want to thank you.
Oh, I don't think that there's many things I can think of that would be interesting, I imagine.
Well,
but it's just this way and that way. I'm very old, as you know. I'm 94. So I think I do pretty well for my age.
You do very well.
But one's mind slips here and there. And maybe in the night I'll think of something that would have been interesting if I'd have thought to tell that young man. But I did.
Well, my mind slips today.